Good morning, everybody. This is Mr. Arrington. I figured I'd go through the intelligence lesson with you guys. Let's go ahead and take a look. I broke it into two different parts, that way it's not so much. It's really not the hardest thing we've talked about, so I should go through it pretty quickly with you guys. I would have assigned this over spring break anyway, so let's just talk about what is involved here, the introduction to intelligence and also assessing intelligence. Now for this one, intelligence, just a basic term for it. It's our ability to learn from experience, solve problems, use knowledge to adapt to new situations. Spearman's the one who really gets this one going for us with general intelligence, also known as G. Underlines all of our mental abilities and measured by everyday tasks on the intelligence test. And there's a number of different tests that we can talk about. Spearman believed that people often have special or outstanding abilities known as S as well. And he thought that people who scored high in one area, maybe it's verbal, they typically scored higher than average in other areas too. So it could be spatial or reasoning. He used factor analysis, statistical procedures that identify clusters of items, factors on a test used to identify different dimensions of performance that underline a person's total score. Now, there's another guy, L.L. Thurston, one of Spearman's early opponents. He gave 56 different tests to people and mathematically identified 7 clusters of primary mental abilities. So he broke it down a little bit further. Word fluency, verbal comprehension, spatial ability, perceptual speed, just to name a few. He didn't rank people on a single scale, so general aptitude, but detected persistence of tendencies. Those who excelled in one of 7 clusters scored well on the other ones too. There was some evidence, though, that there was a G factor. Now, Howard Gardner, his work's gotten actually a lot of attention because of his ideas on multiple intelligences. I'm guessing that many of you have heard of this one. So he identified 8 relatively independent intelligences. Some of them are verbal or math, and I know that some of you would classify yourself as maybe being more math or verbal, or perhaps somewhere on here. So musical, you might have this intelligence where you're able to do these things pretty easily. Visual, maybe spatial, thinking in images and pictures. My math people out there, you can think abstractly, see patterns. You have no issues with those math problems that come at you pretty quickly. And then my athletes, the ones who have complete control over their body and movements, you can handle objects very easily. But then you also have this one, interpersonal. These are the ones where they can work well with others, they understand others' emotions, and they can use that to their advantage. They know when and how to approach people. And then verbal linguistic, you have the understanding you are a verbal language gymnast. You can use these words as you see fit. There's another term that we have in there, the savant syndrome, where a person who may be limited in overall intellectual ability may actually excel in certain areas. They may be like almost genius level. So if you take a look at this guy down here, and I included the video, he was able to just fly over a city, look at it very briefly, and then come back and sketch it almost completely identical. I wish I had that kind of ability. All right, Robert Sternberg. This dude loves threes. I'll tell you that much. When we talked about his triangular theory of love, well, he agrees with Gardner. There's more to success than just traditional intelligence. Yeah, we do have multiple intelligences to a degree. He proposed this triarchic theory, not 9 or 8 intelligence, though, just 3. So analytic, you can take a look at things involved with analytic, creative, innovative, smart, or practical. Everyday tasks that may be poorly defined may have multiple solutions. So using factor analysis confirms that there is a general intelligence factor, that's G, and it does matter. It predicts performance on various complex tasks. High cognitive ability scores predict exceptional achievements. So if you show that you score high in this area, you're much more likely later on in life to achieve more. So that would be like your doctoral degrees or your publications. Moderate positive correlation between intelligence and income. You can see some of the things here. Looks like a jumbled mess on the scatter plot. Grit, we've talked about this one before, so I don't need to go into much detail on it. Passion, perseverance. There's more to just intelligence. You have to understand that by now. It can get you so far, but you have to have that determination to conquer obstacles as you go. nature and nurture work together to produce success. That ability, you have to have some ability, but then you have to work at it. Emotional intelligence. So it's the ability to perceive, understand, manage, and use emotions. It is critical to our social intelligence, which is understanding social situations and managing ourselves successfully. It does break down into these different parts, which is perceiving and then understanding, managing, and then finally using. These people, they are successful in relationships because they understand how all these things work together. They can be very successful at their careers, their parenting styles, which we talked about before, probably much more within the democratic, authoritative, not authoritarian. More academically smarter, but less emotionally intelligent people are going to struggle sometimes. I want you to take a look at these different theories right here. I went through it pretty quickly, but I don't think you need to spend as much time on this stuff as opposed to some of the other material we talked about. So take a look at it. All right. Assessing intelligence tests. I don't know how many of these you actually have taken. So I've got one that I'm going to post there for you so you can look at it. It's a method of assessing individuals' mental aptitudes and comparing them with others using numerical scores. Now, achievement tests, that just reflects what you've learned, and that's going to be like the AP exam, which we do have to talk about. You are going to be taking it. Final exams, what have you learned so far? Now, aptitude tests, there's something a little bit different. They predict your ability to learn a new skill. So that would be like your ACT. Now, there is a correlation between the ACT or SAT and intelligence scores. So Galton's one of these guys very early on, an English scientist who believed that there was this idea about inherited intelligence, and that the wealthiest people sometimes were also the smartest people, this natural ability. And he encouraged those who had the highest intelligence to basically hook up with other people who had those natural skills too. Now, when he did these tests, it failed. It just failed. Measurements didn't correlate with intelligence, but it did give us the phrase nature and nurture and the belief of inheritance of genius. Now, Alfred Binet, tasked with making fair intelligence tests for French children. So we have a number of different immigrants and kids who may be struggling within the school system. And once it became law for all kids to go to school, they tasked him with giving a test so they knew which kids maybe need a little bit more help. And that was where he kind of began. Who needs more help? So Binet and his student Theodore Simon measured children's mental age, which is a level of performance typically associated with certain chronological age. Now, Binet believed the test was to identify children who need special attention. He was hoping that it wouldn't be used to label kids. Unfortunately, though, after he passes away, you're going to see that his work, it will be used to label. When he passes in 9/11, let's see, a Stanford University professor, Louis Terman, created the Stanford Binet test, revealing intelligence a person is born with. Now, the German, William Stern, derived the most famous intelligence quotient. That's the IQ, person's mental age divided by chronological age and multiplied by 100 to get rid of the decimal point. This is the one that most people look at today, say like, what's your IQ? And then they're going to say like 100, 110, and then 120. On contemporary intelligence tests, the average performance of a given age is assigned a score of 100. All right, let's talk about IQ. This formula that they came up with, it worked well for kids, but adults not so much. So Terman developed tests to evaluate new immigrants and World War I Army recruits, the Army Alpha and Beta, versions for illiterate or non-English speaking recruits. It was intended to measure verbal, numerical abilities, following directions, general knowledge, but they also showed to be biased. Judgments based on score were embarrassment for those supporting the test. It reflects not only innate abilities, but their education, native language, familiarity with culture. So it may not have been an accurate representation of what they know or what they could do, but more or less what they had experienced. Wechsler created the most widely used intelligence test. That's the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, together with the children's version, the WISC. It recognizes similarities, vocabulary, letter number. This one's still being used today, especially if your kid was designed or designated as gifted. Striking difference among these individual scores can provide clues to cognitive strengths or possibly weaknesses, and then give programs to help out. Oh yeah, you guys remember this one, right? So standardize. We're going to take a look at a couple different terms here to make sure that these tests we're talking about are measuring what they're supposed to be measuring. Defining uniform testing procedures and meaningful scores by comparison with the testing performance of a pre-tested group. Am I looking at the same things? Can I look at it and say that you are taking the same questions and you're answering the same way across multiple ways? Normal curve. If a graph is constructed of test taker scores, the scores typically form a bell-shaped pattern called the bell curve. And these are the things that we talked about before. So most scores fall near the average, few and fewer lie near the extremes. So this is what we have. Talked about this before, these numbers. Be familiar with this. Fun fact, though, the Flynn effect, when they take a look at these studies and researchers that confirm this, it appears that we're gaining more intelligence. When you take a look at the scores and you adjust it from the 20s and 30s and you look at the scores today, we're scoring higher. So we're getting smarter. Reliability and validity. So knowing where you stand in comparison to standardized groups, it doesn't say much about your own intelligence unless there's reliability. So it's tests given consistent scores no matter who or when taking the test. So high reliability doesn't ensure test validity. Understand that. Does the test measure, predict what it's supposed to? So there's two different parts when it comes to validity. There's content validity, extent to which the test samples the behavior that is of interest, but also predictive, success which the test predicts behavior it is designed to predict. All right, the last thing I want you to do, I'm going to attach the Who Am I handout and see if you can answer those questions after you're done reading the unit. And I want you to watch Battle of the Brains. That's a more interesting one. You're going to get the whole entire week to do this. Jot down the answers. I've included a nice little question on my Google form to help you out, and I want you to fill these out. I put some review questions on there to make sure you guys understand the stuff. All right. Hopefully everybody's doing well. I look forward to talking to you and hopefully seeing you guys soon. All right. Take care.